Begin our time together. And I know that your time is precious, and we are so grateful that you have decided to join us this evening for our last webinar of the fall of 2016. And we decided to save the best for last, Mark, in this series. Mark Gibbons is the district superintendent of the Owensboro district and been a United Methodist pastor for a number of years. And so he has seen the United Methodist Church at different angles from growing up in it and then serving as local pastor and now as a district superintendent. So he is going to unpack a little bit about our structure and before he begins, let's begin with a word of prayer.
Thank you.
Lord Jesus, for this day and for your life, for the cross, we are so eternally grateful. And we thank you that you have called each one of us to be a part of what you are doing in your kingdom. And we are thankful for each person that's represented here and the churches that they represent. We pray that your Holy Spirit would empower them and equip them to be the leaders you've called them to be. We thank you for our United Methodist Church, and we thank you that we are connected, and we thank you that we challenge each other and we encourage each other, and that we may disagree, but that there's a place for each of our voices and where we are. So I thank you for Mark tonight and his willingness to share with us. And we pray, Lord, that you would be honored and glorified in all that we say and all that we do. And all of this in your name. Amen. All
Amen.
right, Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Come on. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, and I just want to begin by saying you need to always be careful about what you say you will never do, because you may end up eating those words. Betty, who's on here, will remember how several months ago we were in our LACE team here in the Owensboro district doing some planning, and we were talking about the classes um, that that were already available through the webinar, and I made the comment, well, I would never want to do the one on structure and organization within the United Methodist Church, because I said that'd be kind of hard to make that interesting live, let alone over as a webinar. And lo and behold, it wasn't a couple of weeks later that Tammy asked me to do this, and so here we are, and I'm going to try to do some overview kinds of things about how we are connected at different levels, starting with the local church all the way up through the general church, and then we'll pause, and I'll pause and have a time to look at any questions you might have around that, and then we'll look at the local church in a little bit more detail, and and talk about the things that are absolutely required, and then we'll pause and have a little time there, and hopefully we'll have time, because I'd like to share a little bit about the the way uh, the church since the 1996 discipline has given us a lot of freedom and given the local church a lot of freedom in the way they can organize that best fits them. And I want to talk a little bit about, if we've got time, to talk about some options there, and then some options that some of our local churches are taking. But we're going to jump right in right now, and I want to first talk about um, what it means to be a connectional church. We use that word a lot as United Methodists, but what does that mean? When I used to teach membership classes in the local church when I was pastoring, I would always begin by saying, when we were starting to teach about the sacraments in particular, that our attitude as United Methodists is not that our way of looking at those things are the only way to do it, and that our attitude was not that the way that the Catholic Church or the Baptist Church or the Disciples of Christ Church or the Episcopal Church and independent Christian churches down the street, if they do it differently, our attitude is not that they're wrong and we're right in all this. And the same is true when it comes to when dealing with what we call church polity, or the way we organize ourselves as a church. We don't say that we have the only way, and that if you don't do it our way, it's wrong. But we do believe that there are good reasons why we're organized the way we are, and if you're going to be United Methodist and be a part of our United Methodist Church, in order to reduce confusion and to reduce potential conflicts, we need to know how we do things and how we seek to live in life together as the church. It's really a part of our living in covenant relationship with one another as United Methodists. We like to say that we as United Methodists are a connectional church, and most of the time when people hear that, the first thing they think of is our mission covenant giving through what we've traditionally called the apportionments. But for me, being connectional is first about covenant relationship. And with us as United Methodists, that begins with us individually, the way we relate to one another in one-on-one relationships, and then it goes all on into the way that we relate to one another as pastors and as laity and as churches together, in the ways that we cooperate with one another in ministry. When it comes to the structure and the organization of the United Methodist Church, being a connectional church means that our churches are connected by a system to guide our work and to govern our policies. It also allows us to pool resources so that we can more efficiently work together to be in ministry throughout the world. So with that as foundational, let's get to the meat of this tonight, and let's talk about how we are connected, and we're going to begin with the local church. We as United Methodists believe that the local church is the primary place where we fulfill our mission to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Districts don't make disciples. Annual conferences don't make disciples. Jurisdictions don't make disciples. The General Conference doesn't make disciples. It's at the local church where disciples are made. It's the most significant area for us as the church. And each church can have its own personality and can have its own style. But our local churches have that common mission to make disciples. And local churches do that through a variety of things, of worship and educational experiences, for fellowship activities and opportunities to serve that allows people to put their faith into action. In our Kentucky conference, we have a little over 800 local churches with over 900 active and retired clergy. We use the term charge to talk about the local church. A pastor is technically appointed to a charge, and a charge may be one church, or it may be two churches, or it can be more than two churches. And each year we have a required charge conference that's held once a year with the superintendent present for the sharing of goals and the setting of the appointed clergy salaries, for electing leadership for the new year, and expressing participation in the mission covenant giving, as well as other matters. The other important thing I just like to lift up as important is that it's at the local church where clergy begin their process of candidacy to enter into set apart ministry. it's at the local church. The local PPR or Staff Parish Relations Committee has that responsibility to actually not just interview them, but the Staff Parish Committee has the responsibility of discerning people that might be encouraged to think about a call into ministry. And then that each individual has to have a recommendation from that PPR committee, and then the church council and the charge conference. That's where it begins. As I said earlier, we're going to come back and talk more about the structure of the local church. But for right now, we're gonna leave it at that and move to the next level, which is the district level. A district, as you may already know, is made up of a group of churches in a geographical location within an annual conference. An ordained clergy person is appointed as the district superintendent, who supervises each district. Churches in a district often will meet together for training events or combine resources in order to be in ministry with one another. I just mentioned a couple of things that are true for us, in particular in Kentucky, in the Kentucky Conference over these past 2 years. One is that each of our districts now is being led by what we're calling operational teams, which are made up of clergy and laity, usually 9 to 12 people who meet around 6 to 8 hours, almost a month, usually all day long for each month, and they have the responsibility of keeping the mission and the vision of the district and of the conference at the forefront in the planning of all of our combined ministries together. The other thing that we're doing in connected with this is that we have an expectation that all of our pastors, whether that's ordained clergy or local pastors or those who are serving as supply pastors, are to be in what we call a covenant group for spiritual formation, for personal accountability, for accountability for their spiritual health, for their physical health, for learning, and for encouraging leading together. Those are two things that are peculiar or unique to us in Kentucky right now. Each district normally across the general church is going to have the following teams. They're going to have a district committee on ministry, which is the group that has the next responsibility for a candidacy process for folks coming from the local church. They interview those folks. They interview folks and have responsibility for recommending for relationship with the conference, those who are going to be ordained, and they have a responsibility to meet yearly with anybody else that's serving our local churches. You also have district trustees who deal with all the property matters, and we also have a district committee on buildings and location, which has the responsibility anytime a church wants to build a new building or add an addition, that if it's so much money that a certain percentage of the local church's budget, then this team has the responsibility of coming in and being an extra set of eyes to make sure that the plan is good and the local churches are being good stewards of their resources and not stretching themselves too far. And then each district usually has a lay training group. In our conference, most of the districts are using a LACE team, or what we call the Leadership or Lay Academy for Church Excellence. So it's a way for churches to come together and to plan leadership together. we just reorganized a couple years ago. We reorganized into 9 districts now, and this slide here is the map of the new districts, and you can see there our 9 districts are the Kentucky East District, the Southeast Kentucky District, Northern Kentucky, Lexington, Bluegrass, Heartland, South Central, Owensboro, and Pennyroyal, and so that is the districts. The next level is the annual conference level, and this slide does show our annual conference. Um, Annual conferences include, of course, United Methodist churches and thus districts in a geographically defined area. A bishop is assigned to an area. Um, why that went forward on me. It's well, it didn't want to. We'll just leave it there. A bishop presides over an annual conference. They actually oversee a, an Episcopal area, and for us that includes the Kentucky Conference and the Redbird Conference. Tammy, I don't know what's going on here. This thing is wanting to do its own thing on the PowerPoint. That's okay. We'll see what happens here. It's wanting to advance on itself. The one of the important things that happens at the annual conference level as it relates to leadership is that it's at the annual conference level that clergy are ordained and that they are assigned. Um, and pastors itinerate. Members of an annual conference itinerate. That is, they move around within an annual conference. They are members of that annual conference. They're not members of the local church. And the bishop and the district superintendents form what we traditionally call a cabinet, and they have the responsibility of assigning the pastors once a year. Also, the annual conference connects our churches together through our mission covenant, or what we call the apportionments, which enables us to support things together within the conference and throughout the world as well. It also helps provide training. But again, in our conference, we're trying to move the training and the leadership development away from the conference level more to the district level. We're not seeing as many things planned conference-wide. We're trying to do that more at the district level, or 2 districts coming together and doing some things together. Of course, once a year, you probably know that we have the annual conference meeting, which is usually a 3 or 4 day event where delegates from the laity and the clergy meet to make decisions concerning the annual conference. It's at the annual conference where the ordination service is held, where our pastors are ordained. The budget is adopted. We have service for remembering clergy and their spouses who have died, and celebrate with those who have retired, and just celebrate the other things that are happening in the local churches. Our annual conference is held in June every year, and this next one will be in Bowling Green again in 2017, June 11th to the 14th. Just real quickly, may or may not know this, but we have tried to focus in on a particular vision and mission for our Kentucky Annual Conference, and it's all centered around leadership. We feel like that is the primary focus of the annual conference in the district, to be centered on leadership. And so we have discerned that the vision of the Kentucky Conference is to be a Christ-centered connection and have Christ-centered communities, and eventually a Christ-centered world. And our primary strategic objective over these last couple of years, and we're still in the midst of that, is we're seeking to change our conference from what we would consider an old management paradigm to a new leadership paradigm at every level. And we feel like if we are starting to accomplish that, then what we will start seeing is a team-based mentality become pervasive throughout the conference and throughout the district and within our local churches as well. And then our mission, we've discerned our mission to be to discover, develop, and send passionate spiritual leaders and resources to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Again, the local church is the place where disciples are made. It's our primary objective together as the conference and this district is to raise up leaders, clergy, and laity in order for that to happen in a better way. So that's the conference, and then the next level we talk about is the jurisdictional level. Jurisdictionals are large geographical divisions of the United Methodist Church within the United States that are composed of annual conferences and within their boundaries. And in the United States, we have 5 jurisdictions, which are the North Central, the Northeastern, the South Central, Southeastern, and the Western. We are in the Southeastern jurisdiction, and this is a slide of that. Representatives from each annual conference, laity and clergy, meet together for a jurisdictional conference once every 4 years. And during that session, they meet together. The delegates vote on business matters regarding ministry within the jurisdictional area. But the primary thing that they do at the jurisdictional level is at the jurisdictional level that bishops are elected and assigned. And so bishops are elected at jurisdictional level. They're assigned to a conference within that jurisdiction. A bishop is elected for life, but they have a mandatory retirement age of 72. A bishop serves within the jurisdiction from which he or she is elected, and they're appointed to oversee an episcopal area in 4-year blocks, which we normally call a quadrennium. It takes special permission for the jurisdictional conference for a bishop to serve in an area for more than 8 years, but it happens. In fact, Bishop Davis, who just retired from our conference, served an additional 4 years when he was in Georgia because he was in the midst of some health concerns, and he was either going to have to serve there another 4 years or go somewhere, serve 8 years, and then go somewhere and serve only 4 years. So the Episcopal Committee, it was in their best, from their wisdom, for him to stay in North Georgia for another 4 years. Our Kentucky Annual Conference is led now by Bishop Leonard Fairley, who just took office September 1. He was just elected at Jurisdictional Conference this past July. Bishop Fairley's from North Carolina, and you may already know that we'll be having his service of installation this coming Saturday in Louisville at 2 o'clock Eastern Time at Christ United Methodist in Louisville. So that's the jurisdictional level, and then we're going to talk about the general church as a connectional church. The General Conference is our highest legislative body in the denomination, and they have representatives from every annual and central conference, which are conferences around the world, meet in April and May once every 4 years. The bishops preside at the General Conference, but it's interesting, bishops don't have the privilege of voice or vote at General Conference, which this is the only time you're going to hear me express an opinion tonight, but that's one thing I think is kind of crazy, that we elect our best leaders, and then when we get to General Conference, we tell them they can't speak or vote. So I don't know. Maybe somebody will look into that and propose something different about that. But at General Conference, you may know that clergy and laity debate and they vote as a body, and they have the primary responsibility to enact legislation for the entire denomination. The organization and the beliefs and the official policies of the church are contained in the Book of Discipline, and it's at the General Conference where proposed changes are considered and voted on. The next scheduled General Conference, we just had one, but the next one will meet in 2020. The next scheduled one will meet in 2020 in Minneapolis, but there may, if you may already be aware, there may be a special called one before that. At the general church level, we're organized similar to the way we are within the United States. There is, in a sense, there's three branches. There's the General Conference, which is the legislative body, which is the group that meets and votes. And the General Conference is the only body that can speak for the whole church. The Council of Bishops can't, and the different commissions at the general level, we'll often see in the media statements from them, but technically they are only speaking for themselves. It's only every 4 years that the General Conference is the only body that can speak for the entire church. We also have the Judicial Council, which is it's kind of like the Supreme Court. It's a 9-member council, and they review situations in the church to make sure that they're in adherence to the Book of Discipline. And then there's the Council of Bishops, which is similar again to our executive branch, but again, the council nor the chair can officially speak on behalf of the whole church, though there are times that the Council of Bishops will issue pastoral letters in an attempt to lead and to influence the church. So those are all the different levels of the church as a connection. And at every level there are teams and committees and councils focusing on particular areas of ministry, and these teams guide each and particular ministry effort and determine the specifics of how those ministries are carried out. So I'm going to pause right there, and the next thing we're going to do is go back to the local church again, but just pause right there for any comments or questions that anybody might have. If you'll just type those in. I don't any of them type any questions so far.
No, actually we've got a few people typing right now, so we'll just give it a second and we'll.
Okay. All right. Let me give them some time here.
All right, Mark has okay, so Betty asked, who gets to vote for bishops?
Who gets to vote for bishops? That would be the official delegates that are elected, and those are elected at annual conference. It's an equal number of laity and an equal number of clergy. And like for our conference, we have 4 delegates for general and 4 for jurisdiction, total of 8 at the jurisdictional. I think that's correct. They're elected by the annual conferences, but like just before, like a year before a general conference is held, we elect our delegates as an annual conference, and again, the clergy vote for their delegates, and the laity vote for their delegates. And the top, in our case, the top 4 are the general church delegates. And then added to that, the next 4 elected are, along with those first 4, are the delegates to the jurisdictional conference. And it's at the jurisdictional conference that those delegates of laity.
So yeah, like you shared, we just had that occur. So there were delegates from all over the Southeast that gathered at Lake Junaluska in July, and what a powerful opportunity to see our bishops being elected. And I remember watching on the internet, live streaming, actually Bishop Fairley being elected and wondering if he was going to be our next bishop. Of course, they didn't announce that till the next night, but it was just an exciting time that our church just went through all of that. Mark has a question. Are there any women as bishops? Sorry about
Yes, and
that.
we've had we got. I'm trying to remember. Tammy, you may help me. I'm trying to remember who the very first one was and what year it was that we had a bishop, woman
It
bishop in
was
the, as far as in the
in the
at the
80s,
church at large.
1984, and she was elected in
Was it
California, but
Marjorie?
she was from Mississippi. And the Southeast jurisdiction did not elect her, and the Western
Okay,
jurisdiction said, if you send her out here, then we will elect her. And the clergy women of the Southeastern jurisdiction at that time um, pooled their money um, to get her on a train to get out to the Western jurisdiction, and that's exactly what happened. And she died not too long ago, and her name is escaping me right now. Leotine Kelly, that's who it is.
oh,
So
you're thinking of Leontine Kelly, but I think there was a woman bishop before
maybe
her,
that's what I was
but
thinking.
not from the
And then
southeast.
Bishop,
Uh, I was think
okay,
I was thinking Marjorie Matthews was the name I was thinking. I may be wrong on that, but anyway, yes, we've had women bishops for it. Yeah, it's been since the '90s. We've had women pastors since like 1956. I think the year I was
yeah, we
born was
just
when
celebrated
we've had
60
ordained
years.
women as clergy. I think Tammy probably knows that date better than I do.
Hey, and Mark,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 19.
one
Yeah,
thing
okay,
we in
56.
the southeastern
So
jurisdiction, we
yeah,
just elected our first African American female bishop, Sharma Lewis from the North Georgia Conference, and I think
that's
out of
great.
the five bishops that we elected this year, two of them are women.
And two of them. And then 4 years ago, we had Debbie Wallace Paget, who from our conference was elected bishop, and she
Yeah.
now serves
All right, the
in the
next
Birmingham
question
area.
is
So,
right.
how many Kentucky
So go ahead.
districts? There are 9. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Uh, I just see the one. How many Kentucky districts? We have 9 Kentucky districts now. Yeah.
And then Alan, you asked about we
Let's
had LACE
see.
classes in
Go back to
2014.
that
Is there a
slide.
time frame for me to do this again?
Okay.
Um, our districts on a regular basis offer the LACE classes, and then we are putting these online so that you can do them as well. You know, there's not a timeline exactly that you have to do it again. We ask that you do advanced classes to keep your certification up, and that is one advanced class every 3 years. So, sounds like you're still good as far as your credentialing if you had LACE classes in 2014.
Are there other questions? I put the slide back up there. I know I went through these pretty quick. This is the slide of our present conference and with our 9 districts identified. If you notice down there in the southeast, we also have the Redbird Missionary Conference, which is a missionary conference, and Bishop Fairley is over that as well. And several of those counties there in southeast Kentucky, there's some counties that have churches that are some churches are in Redbird and some of their churches are in the Kentucky Conference. It's kind of shared there, but those are the 9 districts there. So keep going? Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions. If you'll have time to ask some more, I'm going to jump right back and start talking about the local church again, the organization of the local church. Um, there are certain administrative teams that you have to have. Well, first of all, let me just say there is some freedom that that the local churches have. The discipline, some don't realize, the discipline back in 1996 rewrote this section concerning the local church, in which there was a lot of latitude given. Uh, um, Everybody kind of assumes we have to have all these different committees, and that's not true. And it's particularly hard on small membership churches. But there is a lot of latitude, but there are certain things that have to be covered um, in one way or the other. And we'll talk about what has to be covered, and then we're going to talk about, hopefully, a little briefly about how that can be done in a little bit different way as well. But within the local church, there are some required administrative teams, and one is the staff parish or the pastor parish relations committee, and this is the team that deals with all personnel matters. Uh, if a local church has other staff besides the pastor, then they're the ones that have the responsibility for hiring those, unless the church council designates otherwise. The, the discipline says that the pastor parish or staff parish has the authority to hire and dismiss the staff unless the board writes specifically that has to come back before then. They recommend salaries to the board or the council. Um, they have an advisory role in the appointment making process. And it's important to underline that it's an advisory role. It's the pastor parish committee that shares with the district superintendent, and then the district superintendent shares that with the bishop and the cabinet, what the input is from the local church about the appointment of the pastor for the following year. Um, what the pastor parish committee shares is not binding. It is advisory, and I tell you that the bishop and the cabinet, in my experience, we take all that seriously. And but there are other matters that come to bear about whether a pastor is returned or moved or whatever. But it is the PPR committee that acts as that advisory capacity. The pastor parish committee also is to do an annual walkthrough. If there's a parsonage at the local church, there a representative from the PPR committee and the trustees are to do an annual walkthrough of the parsonage. And I can't emphasize how important that is for that to be done. It just heads off a lot of headaches and stuff if that's done on a yearly basis and not just when there's a pastoral change. And again, as we've said before, it's at the staff parish committee. It's the first step for any candidate for ministry. Um, a candidate for ministry, they have to go before the staff parish committee of their local church first and be recommended before they can move on. So that's one required team. Another required team is a finance committee that deals with the receiving and the caring for of offerings and funds. They recommend a budget to the board or the council. It's real important. They have the responsibility of the separation of duties. I know it's hard sometimes in small churches, but it's their responsibility to make sure you have different people counting the offerings, different people recording the offerings, recording the giving, and a different person who acts as treasurer actually writes the checks. That's a protection for individuals against false accusations of misappropriation of funds. and it also acts as a deterrent toward that. And unfortunately, we have had instances of that happening. So it's real important that that committee makes sure that that is done. A good finance committee, I'll just say, um, well, the other thing here on the PowerPoint, they also make sure there's an annual audit done, and that doesn't mean a professional audit necessarily. Um, on the conference website, there is a guide that can be downloaded that helps a local church do an audit. In one of the ways it suggests is a representative from another local church. They can work together in carrying that out. It doesn't have to be a real expensive thing, but it's important that it's done. Again, it just prevents a lot of heartache and so forth, and keeps things from being misappropriated. Um, I just like to say a good finance team um, does not they are not they do not see themselves as controllers in the sense that they feel like they have to control everything about the finances. I've witnessed where a new idea would come up and the finance team would say nope, we can't afford it, and so it's the end of the discussion. And a good finance team would ask another question. They would ask, well, is this new thing, is this something that was going to help us fulfill our mission? Is it something that God's calling us to do? And if it is, a good finance team will help find the funds for that, or help rearrange funds to make sure that the things will happen. A finance team helps sets parameters, but they also a good finance team will help the church fulfill its mission that's God given. Another required team are the trustees who deal with property matters, including bequests. Any bequests that are given to the church, the discipline says the trustees have the responsibility for caring for those, unless again the church board or council directs otherwise. Sometimes they will direct that to the finance committee, but the discipline says trustees do that. Again, the trustees have the responsibility with the PPR to do an annual walkthrough or review of the parsonage if there is one. And again, as I said with the finance team, a good trustees team are going to be good stewards of property, but they're also going to seek to find a balance of not simply being protectors, and will help the church and the congregation again um, reach out in new ways to fulfill their mission. The final thing that's required, a final administrative team, is the nominations and lay leadership team. Um, the nominations lay leadership team is not simply the team that gets the nominations report for the charge conference ready. It's really deeper and broader than that. A nominations lay leadership team has the responsibility of connecting the members of your congregation um, with ministries that are consistent with the way God's gifted them. So they're to identify, they're to recruit, and they're to train leaders and to help them find ministry places of service, not just slots on a leadership chart. They're to help people find places of fulfillment in ministry. It's the only committee in the church that's chaired by the pastor. And again, a good pastor is not just going to come in and say, bring their slate of officers. And I know this has been done in the past by some of my colleagues, but a good pastor is going to use their team and to find the right people and to place the right people in the right places. So those are the required administrative teams, and then churches have a variety of ways that they can organize for doing the ministries. Um, um, Ministries of nurture, ministries of outreach, and ministries of worship. There's a variety of ways that people can be, or that churches organize for that, and we'll talk just a little bit about that here in just a second. But let me just pause. Any questions or comment about what I've just shared about these required administrative teams? Because I've run into confusion in some of my churches regarding some of those things. Any questions about that?
Mark, there's a few questions being asked.
I see them coming. Yeah, you'll just help me identify those, Tammy. Length of service on a team. It um, the discipline normally says normally says suggest putting those teams in classes. Um, Sometimes though, in small membership churches, it just becomes a matter of practicality and so forth. There are some limitations there on that. The, for the trustees, it says they're supposed to be in classes, 3-year classes, but there's nothing in the discipline that says they can't um, be renominated. So um, there's some freedom on that. Just had a finance issue because church was not following the discipline. That I don't want you to reveal too much, but is there something you want me to comment on that, or you were just commenting, hey, that it is important to know how to follow the discipline?
He's still typing, Mark.
Yeah, I see it. I don't want you to necessarily give all the details if it's not necessary, but they could have not. Oh, they couldn't get enough people to into separate positions. Yeah, that's a tough thing. It really is, and I just, as a superintendent, I encourage folks to do the best they can on that. There's, the reality is, in some of my small membership churches, everybody's related, so it's it's for their protection is why those rules are in there. And you try to abide by that as much as you can, and I always say at least have two people counting the money, and then trying to have a different person write the checks and so forth. And if you can't do that, then by golly, make sure you have an audit done that people are looking over that, and that again that protects those people from false accusations. That's the big thing. Okay, we're about to run out of time. I'm going to skip ahead um, and try to condense a couple of things here for you. Um, there's one way that some churches are organizing now is by what's being called the single council structure. This is particularly helpful for very small membership churches, but we're seeing very large churches go to this too to reduce the complication. This slide here shows that this is the most common present structure in the local church, with either having a church council or administrative board, and those administrative teams that we've just talked about that are required: trustees, the pastor or staff, parish relations, finance, lay leadership, and then the ministry teams. What some churches are doing, and they have the freedom to do that, is combining these that are in red here: the church council, the trustees, all the administrative teams. Some are even combining the ministry teams into this one council as well. Now, what's different about this? As this slide says, the new entity could be called a church council or a guiding council or an operational team or whatever. And not all 5 of those administrative teams would necessarily go away, but in many cases that they're all on this one council. You would still officially have, in a sense, the 5 different administrative committees. Each would have a chair. Each one on the council, there would be a separate person on the council who would be the chair of that group. But that team is really makes up all those administrative teams together. There would officially be still 5 committees, each with their own chair, but they would share a common membership and they'd all meet at the same time. That one council would fulfill that whole role. That's really helpful for small membership churches. Uh, this is how this is one possible way that they would be organized: 9 to 13 people with those following people on there. Uh, this is another. This is a model from out the Oregon, Idaho conference has been touting, um, where the nominations and leadership development team is a separate team, and then they would have 3 people on the lead council that are 3 trustees and 3 finance and 3 PPR folks. But the way it would work is that the council chair and the pastor would together set the agenda, and then when they're going through the agenda, whatever particular individual is the chair of the work that they're dealing with, if it's a PPR matter, then that person would preside over that part of the meeting, and the group would together make the decisions that apply to that. And then when they deal with a finance issue, then another person would chair, and they would just share that responsibility together. And it just makes it a whole lot easier for our very small membership churches. But again, some of our large membership churches are going to this model as well. So the primary role of that team would be to carry out the duties of the unified committees, focus the church council on governance, and to help focus on the mission and the vision of the church. Uh, Again, just as some people say, well, what's the controlling factors? Well, the controlling factors are the mission and the vision and the goals and the budget and the policies and the procedures of the church. The role of this lead council would be to make sure that everyone is living within these parameters. Let me just go on. Well, let me just stop there because I'll just introduce that to you and see what kind of questions that engenders. I'm guessing that might spark some questions from some of you. If you want to respond right now. Here's the things that are attractive. It frees people to be in ministry instead of sitting on committees. It empowers people for ministry instead of micromanaging them. Requires fewer people to fill the position, and it expedites and streamlines decision making. So a lot of people ask, is the discipline allow this? And the discipline does allow this, as long as you've got those 4 administrative teams covered.
Yes, Mark.
Yes, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. We can get the PowerPoint to you.
And we can, if your church is interested in doing this model, we have others that, can talk to you more about how to begin to implement this. As a couple of you were getting on the call tonight, Mark and I were talking about a church here in Owensboro. They've been talking about this for a year now and working to get, to that point. And then I know of another church I've been working with that is, has just introduced this to their administrative council. And so I think a lot of churches see this as a way to.
It does have to be approved. It does have to be approved by by your charge conference through the nomination process. And again, it's not something that I would recommend you do real quick. It's something you got to talk about, and so people, because a lot of people think. I remember I had a member of a church where we reduced ours, the last church I served in, and they thought we were putting the control into too few people, and my response was, but you need to understand it's not about control. That in most of the decisions that the council made had already been made before the issue got whatever it was had got to them, because it had gone through. We had so much buy-in and through through the through the rest of the system. So
Well, it's interesting. The church that I've been working with, um, it's what we would consider in Kentucky a medium-sized church, and there were 56 required positions if everybody got, um, you know, if every spot was filled. Well, there's 150 people going to the church, and 56. That takes quite a few, and so. And the interesting thing is that they also have realized that most of the time their average that attend the administrative council has been 13 for the last year, and so they might as well go ahead and reduce down. I think they're going to do 11 at theirs, and so anyway, it makes better sense, I think. Well, Keith, I'm glad. Well, welcome to Methodism, the world of Methodism, and I'm glad that you participated in this, and hope that it has been helpful. And we can send out. Mark can send me the PowerPoint, and I can send that out to you. And again, we are available if you have any other questions regarding that. So, well, Mark, thank you very much for your help in trying to work through our structure and how we live as Methodists. And there is a method to it, isn't there? So, if nothing else, we live up to our name. And thankful for y'all to participate in your input, and your questions have been very helpful. And so, thank you so very much. I see a couple people typing. Wait just a second, but you're welcome, Alan.
okay,
Glad that you
thank you all.
have been a part of this tonight. So, may God bless you. Look after the first of the year for the webinars that we'll be hosting in the spring, and we'll do another series of them. And so, look for those to be coming out soon. All right, until then, take care, and may the Lord bless you.
See you all.